Hello and welcome to Alex's Model Kits and a Happy New Year, Happy 2020. So I thought I would just talk about what I've been doing recently on the model workbench and catch up with a project I've been working on for a while, which is an understatement really, and a few other things as well. So for those of you, for the one viewer who watches this on a regular basis, you'll know that I have been working on a model kit which is unusual for me because it's a cardboard kit, and it's a kit of the launch pad for a Saturn V rocket. So back last year, and it is last year now, I made an FX 144 scale Saturn V rocket, and I was quite pleased with that, and I wanted to display it. It comes with a small display base of its own, but I wanted to display it with, I thought it looked quite good if I could get a launch tower to sit beside it, or for it to sit on. And the kit exists, but it's a cardboard kit. So I got that and started working on it, and almost immediately ran into a problem because the instructions tell you need to reinforce the cardboard kit in order to support the rocket. And the reason for that is because this here is the base on which the rocket will sit. And just this area here, this is a blast pit. When the rocket fires up and those 5 F1 engines fire up, they will all force their jets down this blast pit and the rocket will then lift off. And in addition to that, there's also 4 supports. Now, this is not yet constructed properly, but this folds. Let's just fold that in like this, and then that folds so it steps out, and it will step out from the blast pit. These 4 areas here have these little steps that come out, and the rocket actually rests on those. So you can see how flimsy this is. This isn't going to support anything, and these by themselves wouldn't support anything either, so they need reinforcing. And the instructions recommend using corrugated cardboard, and I wasn't entirely convinced about corrugated cardboard because this is a long-term base. I'm going to keep the rocket for a long time. I think over time there's a risk, there's potential that the cardboard would sag, and if it sags unevenly, so it drops down like that, then the rocket will twist on the base. Might not be by much, but the rocket itself is, I think it's about 30 inches high, so it's over 2 feet. So a small angle like that at the top will be quite noticeable. So I really want this to be as level and as stable over the long term as possible. And so for that I decided to go with what I know, well, what I'm more familiar with than anything else, which is styrene. And I decided the styrene base would be what I wanted to go for. That led to a second problem, because this is greater in size than A4, and most styrene sheets come in A4 size. In fact, it also comes in 2 parts. So we have this back part here, and the 2 of them then kind of join together like that to form the actual base. And this hole here, this second hole, this is where the actual tower will be secured and located. Excuse me, very slight cold at the moment. So I wanted a styrene sheet that was greater than A4, because what I didn't want to do was have 2 A4 sheets underneath here, which joined together and just kind of butted together, and risk having a bit of a step or gap or something not quite right, which ended up showing through on this as being a lump or a crease in some way. So I really wanted a single sheet to do that job for me, and I found an A3 sized styrene sheet, which was 1/2 mil thick. So this is what I've cut up so far. So these come in 2 parts. This one here I've kind of roughly fitted into place. So you can see here how this blast pit is, the wall is created, and you can see how that's going to stand. So the idea is now that this is the top. I've made the top part now, as you can see, and I've also made a bottom part, which is just this piece here. And I'm working on, again, trying to make sure it's supported properly, because as you can see, even this is quite flexible. So that's not going to support the weight of the rocket either. But it gives me a smooth single surface, and what I can then do is I can then start to apply strips of 1 or 2 mil styrene underneath that to stiffen it up. I can also apply these. Now these are 4 mil square styrene rods. They aren't going to bend. I don't think they're going to bend. They are a little bit bendy actually, but I think once they're in place as well, they will stiffen the whole thing up. And then lastly, what I also have are these balsa wood battens. I'm not sure if you can hear that, the cat's just come in. It's a little bit senile, doesn't quite know where people are. So I also have these balsa wood battens, and I can cut those down to size to... would you excuse me a second while I sort the cat out? Thank you very much. Yeah, sorry about that. Our cat's 19 years old, and she's quite deaf now, and she's also a little bit senile, so she goes out and she into the garden, she comes in, and then she wants to know she's not alone, and so she basically sits at the bottom of the stairs. Believe it or not, that's the bottom of the stairs that you can hear her from, and does that for a while until someone says hello to her, or till she gets bored, which can take a while sometimes. So I was talking about the launch pad. I was talking about the fact that we've got the styrene base sorted out, and I'm going to stiffen that with some thicker styrene sheet, and then using the base I've created, using this and some balsa battens, I can then place those in spots to just give it a bit of support, and hopefully make it a reasonably rigid box to work with. We've also got the side parts here, so they will have styrene, sort of styrene backing as well, just to keep everything nice and firm and secure. I've also, with regards to these parts, with these bits that stick out, I've also created a few little triangular battens that can go in, and they will sit in there because that is going to be what takes the weight of the rocket. So I really want to make sure that these jutting out supports are properly supported. They're not going to sag over time, and hopefully these battens will do the job. So it's not much progress. It is a bit of progress. I had taken some time off over the Christmas break, and I had thought I'd get some more work done than I actually have. But on the very first week of my holiday break, my computer finally packed up. It's been playing up for a while with bits and pieces not working as it should be, sort of emails working intermittently, and the sound cutting out. So actually that's quite frustrating when it comes to watching YouTube, because what would happen would be that I'd watch a video and then go to the next video, and the sound would just go. And it got to the point where actually if you watch a video that has an advert at the beginning, the advert would play, and then because it cuts to a new video, something happens. I'm guessing there must be some kind of interrupt on the driver, and the sound would cut out. So it kind of knocked back my YouTube watching of other model making channels as well, so that was quite frustrating. Anyhow, it got to the point I was kind of working around things and putting up the stuff, and it just started to reboot itself at random moments, and it gets to the point where you think, well, we really can't put up with this anymore. So I bit the bullet and rebuilt it from scratch, and that takes quite a while, just because there's always issues. It never quite works as smoothly as you think. And the two issues that stood out this time, one was that the Windows 10 updates didn't come through, and apparently that's a documented issue. I found a solution to that and got it sorted out. But the other thing, which is frustrating and it's worth remembering in the future, is that previously, when I've rebuilt machines with Internet Explorer, when I had my bookmarks, they're all just held as bookmarks in a folder, and you can go to your old hard drive, grab those files, drag them across to your new hard drive, and your bookmarks are there. With Microsoft Edge, they don't do that anymore. They they apparently store your bookmarks in a database, and you have to export those bookmarks out and then import them in to your new PC, which is fine if you still have access to your hard drive. But if your machine has crashed, and some people's machines will irreversibly crash, then you haven't got your bookmarks, you can't export them. So that seems to be a bit of a lesson learned for me. Next time I'm going to be doing this, I'll just make sure I export things in future. Yeah, generally speaking. So it took more time than I expected, and that meant less time working here. So I'm not quite as far ahead on this as I had hoped I would be. But I think I've got some progress. I'm happy with what I've got. And the plan is, at the moment, to just get this base built. Get the cardboard onto it, get the reinforcing in, get the sides and the bottom and everything sorted out, get a straightforward base, and then at that point I will put it away for a while, because this has been dragging on for such a long time. It kind of has sucked the will of me and model making out of me, so I could do with a break. So with that in mind, I also over Christmas time I did do a very quick build, just to kind of feel like I was making some progress and get somewhere. And what I built was this kit here, which is a Bandai kit. It's a Bandai Star Wars kit, and this is the excuse me, this is the Bandai Special Forces TIE Fighter. This is the two-seater one that Finn and Poe escape the Death Star on, and and the base has come off. The base is quite loose on this one. All the others generally tend to be fairly stiff, but the base is fairly loose on this one. We'll put this over here out of the way, and I'll fumble around fixing it later on. So I haven't made many photographs of this because I just wanted to get on and build it, and just do something that gave me something to look at and made me feel like I was making some progress somewhere. Generally speaking, I'm fairly happy with this, but I've had a little think about Bandai, and I think there's some issues with the kits. When Bandai announced that they had the kits, or they had the license to make the kits, they made a point of saying that it's going to be snap fix, you don't need glue, and we're moulding the parts in the colour that the part would normally be in, so you don't need to paint it. You can just basically take it out of the box, snip the pieces off the sprue, press it together, and you have a kit. And that looked like a really good idea. And I think some model makers maybe thought, well, I quite like the painting process, and so I don't want to have to sort of just ignore that. And they carried on painting regardless. But I think other model makers, and certainly for younger model makers, it's not a bad way of doing things. It's a nice way of getting into the hobby, as a simple kit which comes up and looks very nice straight away. But it's not. I've done 4 kits so far, and I can't say that any kit has just been as simple as it sounds. So the first kit I did was R2-D2 and BB-8, and BB-8. Here is BB-8. BB-8 went together very well. I'm very pleased with that. That's a nice. I'm very happy with that. It looks quite nice. It looks like BB-8. There are some joins. Now I look at it again with fresh eyes. There are some joins here and there that maybe I could have worked on a bit harder. The tolerances in this are very fine, and so if you're not careful with getting your sanding sorted out, you will get some little steps and gaps. But generally speaking, pretty happy with that. But there was a problem with R2-D2. R2-D2 is here. There were two problems, in fact, with R2-D2. The first is the dome, because that colour, it's not really a chrome, it's not a metallic, it's just a dull grey. And even when R2 was kind of grimed up on Dagobah, he still had a sort of metallic shine about it, and that doesn't really give you the shine. So if I was being really picky, I'd say that isn't really the colour it should be. The other problem was that the central leg, which I haven't extended, I think you take the head off, don't you? I haven't extended for a long time. The central head, you can take the head off, central leg, you can take the head off and then just push, he says, push the leg out to extend the leg. So you have the third leg that extends and then retracts. And there was a problem with that as well, because there was some plastic internally inside the kit which prevented the leg from retracting. You could extend it out just the once, and then when you tried to retract it, there was some excess plastic along the channels, and it wasn't flash, it was part of the mould, which then blocked the leg from returning back up. And I had to do quite a lot of sanding and filing and cutting to clear the space to get the leg up and down. So there was a problem there with that kit, or two problems with that kit. The next kit I did was the Imperial TIE Fighter, which I have here. And again, I like this kit. This looks very nice. I'm very pleased with this. This is the TIE Fighter from the original films. And the problem with this is that the plastic that this comes in is not any colour that any TIE Fighter ever appeared in the films. It's actually, I'm not entirely sure what colour, I think it might have been this colour. I have some photographs somewhere, so I'll dig those photographs out and maybe show them on this video. But it wasn't the right colour, and I started to build the kit just as a snap fix, just wanting to just get it done nice and quick, and quickly felt I couldn't leave it in that colour. It just looked wrong, it looked awful. And so I then did some work looking for the right shades that I could use. Now TIE Fighters do tend to vary quite a lot in colour. They are either a very light grey, or they are this darker grey. And there's all kinds of sort of odd reasons about that. It's because of the history of how the TIE Fighters were being made for the film. But I've gone for a darker grey on this one. I'm going to do another one with a light grey at some point in the future. The dark ones appeared in the later films, and the light ones appeared in the early films. So Star Wars Episode 4 and New Hope, they're kind of they're just an off-white, and then later on they darken down. So that kit needed painting. There's no two ways about it. It had to be painted to look right. The kit I did after that was this kit here, which is another TIE Fighter. There's a theme emerging, isn't there, on the kits I like to do, on the Star Wars kits I like to do. This kit here, which is this is a First Order TIE Fighter. The first thing about it that's interesting is that it's noticeably smaller. Let's just see if we can get this off the stand again. It's noticeably smaller than the original TIE Fighter. But this had problems as well. Again, I haven't painted this. I was fairly happy with the colour, because it's just basically it's a black TIE Fighter with some grey panelling. But there was a problem with this, which was that the sprue gates for this were quite chunky, and I struggled to get the kit off, or to get the solar panel frames off the sprue without damaging it, because they were so chunky. When I was trying to snip through them, I wasn't able to snip cleanly, and I ended up stressing the plastic and distorting it, and also discolouring it. And you can see, if you look quite closely, you can see where those sprue gates were. So that was frustrating for me, because I thought that was, I was just surprised, that Bandai, who do such a good job on these kits in terms of quality and detail, the sprue gates suddenly seem to let them down. So it made me think, well, maybe that was just me. Maybe I didn't really pay much attention and think about it enough, and I just ploughed on regardless, and that damage is my fault. So when I did this one this Christmas, I spent a lot more time being very careful about getting the parts off the sprue. In fact, to the point where I cut back against the sprue, back against the frame. So I had the frame, the solar panel frame off the sprue, but with all the, maybe a ½ centimetre of sprue surrounding it. So I had more space to work with to slice through more carefully. And even doing this, you can still see some stress marks. There's no, I don't think there's any distortion as such, but you can still see a discoloration where the plastic has been stressed. So I think what I'm saying with these kits is that when they first came out, a lot of people got very excited and said, these are really simple kits, they're going to be really easy for kids to do, and in many ways they are. This is fine. Most kids will be very, very happy with this. But I think maybe I've mistaken what they said, or I've taken them too literally. And when someone has said, you don't need to paint these kits, I've gone down the path of thinking, I don't want to paint them then. I just want to open the box and cut the parts off and put them together and have something nice and quick. And that is a mistake on my part. These kits need as much attention to get a proper result as any other kit. So don't be tempted to think this is a quick fix, if you like, for a model making. You can get something nice, but if you want good results, you want best results. It sounds obvious. It sounds obvious now I'm saying it, but I, for some reason, just didn't think I needed to spend the same amount of time and effort on those kits as I do with any other kit, and that's nonsense. I do, and so I have other kits ready and waiting to be made, and I look forward to doing those, and I will treat them as proper kits with a proper amount of time, even for me, to get them done. The last thing about Bandai I'd say is that Bandai have quite a broad range now of kits. They've got obviously a lot of figures, and I've got quite a few Stormtroopers waiting to be made. Quite a lot of the sort of vehicles appear in Star Wars, and they have varying scales. So they've got a Millennium Falcon at 1/44 scale, and Slave 1 and 2 at 1/44 scale. They've also got a Millennium Falcon at 1/72 scale, which is about £300, I think. And they've got various other things kicking around as well. And I think they also provide kind of figures, not action figures, but sort of display figures, which are already made for you, which is fine. But the problem is with that is that it's quite hard sometimes to know exactly what you're buying. And recently I bought myself an X-Wing, Bandai Star Wars X-Wing. This is the Poe Dameron's black X-Wing that appears in episode 7 and 8, I think. And was quite pleased because I got what I thought was a bargain. It's £13 coming from Japan, £13. Very happy with it. I bought, in fact, this TIE Fighter I bought for £13. So you can get them cheaply if you keep an eye out for things. And when it came through the post a couple of years ago, it came through as this. This is not the same scale as all of these. To give you some idea, this is the box. I've got a second TIE Fighter, I said. This is the one that's waiting to be made. This is the TIE Fighter, and that's the X-Wing. So I don't know what scale this is. I'm guessing it's 1/44. I have looked around pretty much everywhere, and there's no reference to any scale at all. and interestingly, the instructions are just on the lid, just like that. So I'm feeling a bit grumpy about that because it wasn't clear when I bought it that it was 72nd scale, and I didn't even know they did these on 1/44 scale, and it's not what I wanted really. And I'll still make it, and I'll still enjoy it, and I'll still spend some time and treat it like a real model. But something else to worry about, something else to not worry about, but look out for is if you are buying these kits, make sure you know what you're buying, because it now is becoming, I think, more confusing to really understand what you're getting. So keep an eye out for things. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is just a very brief plug, actually, really, for someone else's channel, UK Scale Modeler in Poulton. He often runs group builds. I've said before, I think he's kind of a bit of a sort of social glue for some model makers. He just seems to have this ability to run group builds, and just model makers from all over the place just get involved and get enthusiastic. And I've seen other people do group builds, and they never seem to get quite the response that Ian does. So he has a group build group channel on Facebook, and his own channel, UK Scale Modeler. He talks about the group builds as well, and talks about what they're going to be. And I will try. I don't often, in fact, I don't think I've ever put a link to a video in my videos, so I will look at that and I will try and link across to this. But he has announced there's a fresh group build due to start. He announced it a couple of days ago, and I think there's a week to vote on what you want to do. The three options are National Pride, which is anything from your own country, Shelf of Doom, which is anything that's been sitting around on your own shelf for a length of time that hasn't been done. For me, to be honest, I haven't got. I tend to work on the basis of I've started a kit and I will finish that kit, and that's why sometimes it takes so long to get things done, because where I think other model makers would hit a snag and think, oh, I'm going to think about that, I'll put it away to one side, and then they'll do something else in the meantime. I don't. It's going to sit on my desk and I will work on it until it's done, and that obviously means I then slow down in my output on model kits. So I don't really have a Shelf of Doom. I've got one model which I never finished, which is the Armstrong Whitley Whitworth. Ran into all kinds of problems with that, and what I've actually done is I've bought a new kit, and I'm just going to start that from scratch and learn the lessons from the past kit and hopefully do a better job. So I don't really have a Shelf of Doom, so I won't be. There's not much I can do for that one, or record breakers, and that's basically anything that has been the first of something or the last of something, or I think one option he talks about is a T55, which was the most produced tank ever. So anything that's got some kind of record involved, and yeah, I've got a few ideas that I might do for that if that's the one that wins. Either way, I thought I'd just let you know that voting is currently open for that, so I will try and attach a link for that video. If I can't attach that link, then please have a look at UK Scale Modeler, or go to Facebook and go for the group build group, and then look at what Ian's talking about. So look at his own video and make your vote if you're interested in joining, because his group builds are always well attended, and I'm sure you'll have great fun joining him. So that's pretty much it. One last thing, I have had another letter from Mrs. Trellis. Mrs. Trellis, thank you for your letter. And she writes, Dear Bernard of Annex's Model Kits, I am interested in the best route to take from Kent to Cornwall for my holiday in the summer. What would you advise? Well, Mr. Trellis, maybe I might advise paying a bit more attention to what this channel is about, but since you ask, I think there's two routes really, as far as I can remember. two main routes anyway. One is to take the motorway, M20, M25, M4, M5, and then take it down that way. And the other route, I think, is the A303. So you take the motorways, M20, M25, M26, M25, and then I think M3, A303 after that, and that takes you pretty much right down eventually to the A30. And that's probably the route I would use. That's the route I have used in the past. It's more interesting, and so I don't think you lose a great deal of time. Some people will talk about the fact that the motorway is faster. I think often the motorways tend to get quite snarled up, and so so I don't think you gain anything from using the motorway at all. So I would recommend, in answer to your question, Mrs. Trellis, I would recommend use the A303. I hope that helps. Right, well, that's thankfully, mercifully, the only letter I've had. So with that, I will say thank you for watching, and do you know, for a minute I was about to do what Ian always does, which he has a great way of signing off his videos, and just for a moment I just thought I was about to do that, and I'm not going to do that because that's very much his thing. So thank you for watching, and enjoy your modelling, and I will see you again soon. Thanks very much, and goodbye. Bye.